Welcome to the 90-Day Novel, where in the next 90 days I'm going to try and write a book based on the prompt. The video is linked in the description. First, we need to start with structure. There are several plot structures to choose from that will act as sort of a wire shape for the book. As we create the characters, the plots, and the setting, it'll start to take more of a book-like structure. For the first draft, it'll just be putting ideas down on paper. Normally, I would have a few paragraphs and kind of ad-lib off that. There are two types of writing. One, where you plot out everything you're going to do and kind of have a rough sketch before you start writing. The other is called pantsing, where you just kind of write things down, and as you go, they'll change, you'll move stuff around, or you'll totally rewrite different parts. Normally I'm the first one, but today we're doing something different. Starting with the wireframe, you gotta pick how your plot is going to be structured. And I already brainstormed a few plot points, so I kind of know what I'm looking for this part. There is the very simple Freytag pyramid, there's the emotional roller coaster of Save the Cat, the character building Freytane curve, and the W plot. All of these have their places, and based on what you have in mind, you'll go with different ones. For this prompt, I'm going for the Save the Cat, as it is the most like how I have the plot points set up. Everything, of course, is subject to change, so we'll see how it goes as we actually start to get into the writing portion of it. The stuff we're going to do today is all of the outlining of the major character and the major plot points. For the major characters, there will be two. We have the high school girl, which will be our protagonist, and then we have the demon who comes in and tries to fix things for her. Starting with the human. This is her last year of high school, so will be age 17. I'll come up as a name as we go is really important right now. And bullying is one of the major plot points, so we have to have something that people can relate to being bullied for. This can be being quiet and shy, which kind of comes in the form of reading and doing nothing else but reading in school, like avoiding any kind of social whatever. Another thing for the plot is she's gonna need some special interest in the occult and ghosts in general. And for some communication explanation with the demon before we get into something that makes it easier, I'm gonna put tarot card reading. I really have no idea how tarot card reading works exactly, so I'll have to look it up and see if that is subject to change. Then we need to have one sort of defining feature about the character, so I'm gonna put this in the form of her favorite color. I can see her having like this purple sweater that she always wears. She's the girl in the purple sweater. I like these shades of blue violet or iris. They're nice and soft, and they just feel like they would belong to this timid character that she's going to start off as. Then we're going to have her having one close friend, and she can talk to this close friend about anything that's going on. And then I'm going to put that she's not so close to her families so that I don't have to put them into this. Now for the demon. The name is not really relevant since we're not going to be addressing her by name. Multiple characters are not going to be talking about her, so we're just going to leave the name blank. I'm going to make her 250 years old so that she's old enough to know what she's doing, but not like old and strict and cranky. For the plot, her powers are going to be object manipulation, like picking things up or moving them around, appearing through shadows so no one can see her, so she's like the shadow behind this girl on a wall, if you really look. And then, not great at listening. I don't know if that's some special power, but putting it as one just so you know, like, she's stubborn, hard-headed, all of this good stuff that'll make it very difficult for the girl to control her later on. Now that we have the characters kind of down, if this was a more complex story, there would probably be more here, but this is pretty ABC kind of thing. There's not really any major backstory to these characters, and we'll probably add more as the story continues. But now that we have the characters, we can outline the major plot points. This is like a 16 plus thriller, so not really for all ages, and we're gonna deal with some mature themes. There is going to be a happy ending to all of this, because I don't feel like traumatizing myself with this project. Now, with the disclaimer out of the way, we can. The first plot point is like the baseline. So when you're doing things like science, you need a baseline to see how things react before you start changing things. So this first plot point and chapter is like a normal day. This would be like where the characters are before we started watching or reading. So, normal day at school with the main character. The first rising action is having a bad night with a dream. And the next day is at school, everything's normal, but something is a bit off. Like when you can't see something's off, but you definitely know something is off. And the afternoon goes kind of normal, and then that evening is the first attack, where she gets jumped by the two janitors. Nothing is going to happen that makes it 18 plus, but she does end up spending a few nights in the hospital because of it. And during this time, she'll get to know the demon, and for the B plot, we're gonna kind of be looking at the demon side of the story, which is like, why are they here and what's going on in the background with the demon. Just add a bit more depth to that character instead of just troublemaker causing problems type of character. When she gets out of the hospital and back to school, the demon will experience a normal day at school for her, which is the first time we see this bullying. Later the day, she comes across the first attacker, and the demon ends his life, no question. It's horrifying, but she manages to get out of there unseen so that the crime is not brought back to her. And there'll probably be some like background things with an investigation into the murder. We'll see about that later. That night, the girl and this demon, they have a little chat about how murder is not okay, and the girl doesn't want to get framed for a murder that the demon does, and they have a talk about it that night. The demon has a list and not going to back down. Thankfully, the next day is a weekend, so the girl takes the demon to someone who can handle that thing. The girl gets the demon bonded to her through some sort of pendant, and for her side of the bargain, she has to let the demon go through the list of people who have wronged the girl, which is what she was placed on Earth to do, is to get sort of this revenge. Now we skip through Sunday and get to Monday, where the demon first attacks the bullies and gets them in trouble. There are like 3 of them, and this is a major inconvenience that happens to the perfect student one. And after this major inconvenience and strike 1, there's some celebrating, but it's kind of cut short by the girl getting a PTSD attack for the second attacker being in close proximity. And then there's kind of a bit of a time skip and then the next day there's like a second strike against the bullies, which after the first strike, being so close to the second strike makes the second strike seem like worse, which gets them in school suspension. Then the demon takes care of the second attacker, and then we do a bit of a time skip to prom where the bullies get suspended and they have to miss. And then there's this big dance party at the end, just for a happy note. Now that we have all the plot points sort of done and dusted, we can start writing with these as our guiding points and probably the chapters that we're going to keep writing. I will be keeping track of everything in an Excel spreadsheet. These will be the word counts for each of the chapters between draft 1 and draft 2, and so on if needed. Plus how much it changes between editing and the fine comb tooth editing of listening back to the story and the little things that you kind of add sort of at the end as fine detail. I'll also be keeping track of words per day, as I will be dedicating about 4 or 5 hours of a day to writing this. So I'm thinking about 1,500 to 2,000 words a day. And that's sort of the introduction of how this is all going to work. Subscribe to my YouTube to keep yourself updated, and I'll catch you all on the flip side.